Okay, so once again, we are using the trig ratios to solve a right triangle, which is a triangle that has a right angle. If it doesn't have a right angle, you cannot use the trig ratios, and I like to start by writing Sohcahtoa, so I remember what the trig ratios are. So just to recap, sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So, couple things here. When we are solving right triangles, if the question just says solve the triangle, that means find all the missing angles. In this question, we only have one missing angle, and find all the missing side lengths. So what's the side length of BC? I covered it, 12 centimeters here. This is 12 centimeters, and this angle A is 43.5 degrees. What's angle B? 90 degrees. So there's two ways we could find angle C. What's one way we could find angle C? Yep. We could use the sum of the interior angles of a triangle, right? You could use sum of interior angles in a triangle. We know that all angles in a triangle add up to what? How many degrees? Sum of interior angles, 180 degrees, right? So you could just add 43.5 plus 90 and then take that away from 180. That's one way to do it. So we're doing 180 minus the sum of 43.5 and 90, and altogether that gives us 46.5. So angle C is 46.5 degrees, so you can label that. Okay, so that's the first step. Just find all the missing angles, and then we are going to find the missing side lengths. Now, we have to indicate an angle. Which angle do you want to indicate? Because when we label the sides, it's always in reference to a specific angle. So which angle should we indicate? Choose the angle that's given, because if you make an error here, then everything's going to be wrong. So choose the one that they give you, just to be safe. I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, so in reference to this angle, let's label the sides. Side BC would be opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse from angle A. Good, opposite, bless you, opposite. And then side length BA or AB would be what? Adjacent. And then we know that this is the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. So first step is to always label your sides. Why? Why do we have to label the sides? Exactly, to know which ratio to use. So, well, what do we want to find first? Do you want to find AB or do you want to find AC? Doesn't really matter, because we have to figure out which ratio we're using. So which side length do you want to find first, AB or AC? Okay, so we're finding the adjacent side, and we are given the opposite side. So you have to figure out which side lengths are you given and which one are you finding out, and then we can figure out which ratio to use. So we're looking for the trig ratio that has adjacent and opposite. Is it sine? No. Is it cosine, adjacent, and opposite? Or is it tan, adjacent and opposite? So this one had opposite and hypotenuse. This one had adjacent and hypotenuse. So yes, it's the tan ratio. So on your calculator, so we're going to put tan followed by the angle. What's the angle of angle A? 43.5 equals, the ratio is opposite over adjacent. I'm just writing it out for you. So tan, 43.5 equals, what's the opposite side length? What's the opposite side? What's the measure? 12 over, what's the adjacent side? Let's call it, this is C. Look, remember I told you how to label the triangle? Across from the angle, so this has to be C. Side length C. The side lengths are always labeled, you look at the angle across from it, and that's how we label it. So this would be A, and this would be B. Okay, so now how do we solve for C? Cross multiply. So tan 43.5 multiplied by C is equal to 1 times 12. And then we can divide this by tan 43.5 right? We're trying to isolate C, which means I have to divide the right side by tan 43.5. So C will be equal to, if you do this on your calculator, 12 divided by, you either type in 43.5 tan or tan 43.5. Okay, figure. So it was approximately 12.6. So let's round it off to approximately, don't forget the symbol, 13 centimeters. So that's this side length. Okay, now we have to find the other missing side length. There's two ways you could find the other missing side length. Here's our triangle. Let me redraw it. It's a right angle triangle. This is 13 centimeters and this is 12 centimeters. And we're trying to figure out the hypotenuse. We could use Sohcahtoa again, or you could use what? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So why don't you guys practice Pythagorean Theorem and tell me, this has to be C in Pythagorean Theorem, right? C is the hypotenuse in Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, so it's, yes, I'm not going to go through the steps, but it's approximately equal to 18 centimeters. So you've solved the triangle because you found every single missing side length and every single angle. Okay, so in this example, you're given two side lengths, but you're not given the missing angles. If you find one of the missing angles, then you can use the sum of the interior angles to find the other one, right? Because we know that this is a 90-degree angle. Okay, so which angle do you want to find? D or F? Doesn't matter, you tell me. D? Okay, so in reference to angle D, label your triangle, because we're going to use the trig ratios. We can't use the sum of the interior angles because we don't know 2 out of 3 angles. So in relation to angle D, 11 centimeters is opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse. Good, adjacent. And 13 centimeters is opposite or hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So you're looking for a ratio that has A and H. Sine does not have A, it only has H. Cosine has A and H, right? So you're using the cosine ratio. So cos D, we don't know the angle. Remember, the ratio is always followed by the angle, but we put D because we don't know it. And what is the ratio? What over what? John? Sorry? So let's write it out though. It's adjacent, right? Adjacent over hypotenuse. That tells you the order of what to write it in. And in this question, the adjacent is 11 and the hypotenuse is 13. So we got the ratio. Figure out what the ratio is. What is it as a decimal? 0.84. Okay, so cos D, if we divide this, 11 divided by 13, round it to 4 decimal places. 0 decimal, what was it again? 8462, because we're rounding it. That's the ratio, but we want to know the angle. So what do you punch in on your calculator? You're going to type in shift cos, or if it's second cos, then you're going to put in the decimal, the ratio, and equals. This might be different on your calculator. It might be sorry, not that one. It might be the decimal and then shift cos. Then when you hit equals, you should get approximately 32 degrees. Okay, did everyone get 32 degrees for the angle? So if I know that this is 90, this is 32, all angles in a triangle add up to what? So I'm going to do 180 minus 90 plus 32, and angle F is equal to what? Approximately 58 degrees. It has to be 58 because if you check, 90 plus 32 plus 58 equals 180.